You wake slowly, not all at once, but in gentle pieces, as if your mind is rising with the tide beneath you. The first thing you notice is movement. It is soft, rhythmic, a slow, almost thoughtful swaying that carries your body from one side to the other, then back again. The wooden surface beneath you creaks quietly, responding to the shifting weight of the ship as it glides across unseen waters. You do not yet open your eyes. You simply feel. The air is different here. It is thick with salt, faintly damp, and tinged with the scent of aged timber. There is something else too, something subtle but persistent. Tar, rope, the lingering traces of a vessel that has spent long months at sea. You inhale slowly, adjusting to it, letting it settle into your senses as if it has always been there. A distant sound reaches you, low, continuous. It takes a moment to understand. Waves, not crashing, not violent, but steady. Water brushing against the hull in a repeating rhythm. Like breath, like time itself, measured not in seconds, but in the endless rise and fall of the ocean. You begin to notice the space around you. It is close, narrow. The ceiling above feels lower than expected, as though it presses gently downward. Somewhere nearby, wood taps against wood. A loose object, perhaps, shifting with the ship's motion. There are no wide windows, no open sky, only the dim suggestion of light filtering through cracks and seams. You open your eyes. At first, everything is shadow, shapes without meaning. Then slowly, as your vision adjusts, the details emerge. Rough wooden beams, thick, warm planks forming the walls. A hammock, your hammock, suspended between two posts, swaying gently as the ship moves beneath it. The fabric is coarse but familiar, holding you securely, cradling you in its curve. You do not rush to sit up. There is no urgency here. Time moves differently aboard a ship like this. It stretches, it softens. It becomes something you feel rather than measure. Somewhere beyond this small sleeping space, you hear footsteps. Slow and deliberate, boots against wood. A voice follows, low and indistinct, speaking words you cannot quite make out. It fades quickly, carried away by distance and the thick structure of the ship. You remain still, listening. The ship itself seems alive, not in any mystical sense, but in the way it breathes and responds. Every beam, every rope, every joint contributes to a quiet conversation of creaks and murmurs. The hull shifts. The deck above responds. The masts, far overhead, catch the wind and translate it into tension and movement. All of it working together, all of it constant. You begin to understand where you are. A ship, not a modern one, not smooth or silent, but something older. Something built by hands that understood wood and wind and sea in a way that feels almost forgotten. This is the 1700s. There are no engines, no mechanical hums, only sails stretched wide above you, capturing the invisible currents of air that guide your journey across vast, open waters. You shift slightly in your hammock. It responds immediately, swinging a little wider before settling again into its gentle rhythm. There is a strange comfort in this motion. It reminds you that you are not fixed, not anchored. You are moving, always moving, carried across distances too large to fully imagine. For a moment, you wonder where you are going. But the question does not press itself upon you. It drifts. Like everything else here, it feels unhurried. Destination is less important than the journey itself. The ship moves forward because it must, because that is its purpose. You hear another sound now, closer, a soft rustle of fabric, followed by the quiet creak of rope. Someone else is awake. Perhaps they have been awake for some time. On a ship like this, sleep is never universal. There are always those who watch, those who work, those who listen to the sea while others rest. You turn your head slightly. In the dim light, you can make out another hammock nearby. It hangs just a few feet away, its occupant already gone. The fabric still sways faintly, as if remembering the presence that was there moments before. It reminds you that this space is shared, not private, not truly your own. And yet, it feels enough. The ship tilts slightly, not sharply, just enough for you to notice. The movement is followed by a deeper creak, one that travels through the wood beneath you like a slow echo. Somewhere above, a rope tightens. A sail adjusts. The wind has shifted, even if only a little. You close your eyes again, just for a moment. There is something calming in surrendering to the rhythm, the rise, the fall, the quiet repetition of motion that asks nothing of you. It does not demand attention. It simply exists, steady and patient. When you open your eyes once more, the light has changed slightly, still dim but clearer now. Morning is beginning, though you cannot see the sun directly. It reveals itself through subtle shifts, a faint glow along the edges of wood, a softening of shadows. You decide to sit up. The movement is slow, careful. The hammock shifts beneath you, responding with a gentle sway that you instinctively balance against. Your feet find the wooden floor below, cool and solid despite the constant motion of the ship. You pause there for a moment, simply feeling the ground beneath you. It is strange. The ship moves, yet it holds you. It carries you across an ever-changing surface, yet it provides a sense of place, a temporary one, perhaps, but real all the same. You take in the space more fully now. The sleeping area is not large. Rows of hammocks, some empty, some still occupied. Personal belongings are minimal. A small chest here, a bundle of cloth there. Everything secured, everything mindful of movement. Nothing is left loose without reason. The air shifts slightly as someone passes nearby. A faint breeze follows, bringing with it a clearer scent of the sea, fresh, sharp. It contrasts with the heavier smells of wood and tar, creating a layered atmosphere that feels both enclosed and open at once. You stand slowly. The ship responds beneath your feet, and for a brief moment, you feel unsteady. Then your body adjusts. It learns quickly. It aligns itself with the rhythm of the vessel, finding balance not in stillness, but in motion. This is how life begins here. Not with noise or urgency, but with awareness, with a gradual return to the senses, with the understanding that you are part of something larger, something that moves continuously. Whether you are awake or asleep, you take a step forward. The floor creaks softly beneath your weight, joining the ongoing chorus of sound that defines the ship. It does not stand out. It blends. Everything here blends, becoming part of a larger pattern that is both complex and simple at the same time. As you move toward the narrow passage that leads out of the sleeping quarters, you pause once more, not because you must, but because it feels natural to do so, to take in the moment, to recognize where you are before stepping into what comes next. The ship continues its steady journey. The sea continues its endless motion. And you, now fully awake, begin your quiet participation in a world defined not by haste, but by rhythm. As you step out from the sleeping quarters, the space around you shifts, not dramatically, but enough to be felt. The passage is narrow. Low overhead beams force a slight bend in your posture, encouraging a quiet awareness of your own movement. Every step must be considered, not out of difficulty, but out of habit formed by the ship itself. It teaches you, gently, how to move within it. The walls are close on either side, made of thick wooden planks darkened by time and touch. You can see where countless hands have brushed against them, leaving subtle variations in color and texture. The wood is not smooth. It carries small ridges and imperfections, reminders of its origin long before it became part of this vessel. There is a quiet honesty in it. The air here is still, but not stagnant. It carries a muted echo of the sea, filtered through layers of timber and structure. You can hear the water more clearly now, a steady hush against the hull, like a constant whisper that never quite fades. Occasionally, there is a deeper sound, a hollow thud as a larger wave meets the ship's side. But even that feels measured. Nothing is abrupt. You continue forward, your hand brushing lightly against the wall for balance. The ship sways beneath you again, a little more pronounced this time, and you instinctively adjust. It is not something you think about. Your body learns quickly, adapting to the rhythm as if it has always known it. The passage opens slightly, and you find yourself in a broader section of the ship's interior. Here, the ceiling rises just enough to allow you to stand fully upright. The space feels less confined, though still enclosed. Light filters in from somewhere above, pale and indirect, casting soft lines across the floor. You pause again, taking in the details. Barrels are stacked along one side, secured with rope to prevent movement. Their surfaces are worn, marked with symbols and letters that hint at their contents. Water, salted meat, grain, supplies that sustain the ship and those aboard it. Each one carefully placed, carefully managed. There is no excess here. Everything has a purpose. Nearby, a length of rope hangs coiled on a wooden peg. It is thick, rough to the touch, and faintly damp. You can almost feel the tension it must carry when stretched between sail and mast, holding against the force of the wind. Even at rest, it seems to contain a quiet strength. Above you, the ship speaks again. A long creak runs through the beams, followed by a subtle shift in weight. The sails are catching a different current of air now, adjusting to the changing wind. Though you cannot see them from here, you can sense their presence, vast and silent, guiding the ship forward with patient certainty. You move toward a set of wooden steps leading upward. They are steep, narrow, worn smooth at the center from years of use. As you place your foot on the first step, you feel the ship tilt once more, and you pause briefly to steady yourself. Then you continue, one step at a time, your hand gripping the edge for support. With each step, the light grows stronger. The air changes too. It becomes fresher, cooler, carrying with it a clearer scent of the open sea. The enclosed stillness of the lower deck begins to give way to something wider, something more expansive. You emerge onto the main deck. The change is immediate, though not overwhelming. The sky stretches above you, pale with early morning light. It is not yet bright, but it is open, and that openness feels vast after the closeness below. The horizon is visible in all directions, a soft line where the sea meets the sky, gently blurred by distance. The ship moves beneath you in a broader, more noticeable way here. The deck rises and falls with the waves, each motion slow and deliberate. You can see it now, the water itself, rolling in long, even swells that carry the ship forward. You take a moment to adjust. The deck is made of wide wooden planks, similar to those below but more exposed to the elements. They are lighter in color, worn by sun and salt. Small gaps between them allow water to drain, though today they are mostly dry, save for a faint sheen that catches the light. Your gaze lifts upward. The masts tower above, tall and steady, their surfaces lined with ropes that stretch in every direction. The sails are already set, large sheets of fabric billowing gently as they catch the wind. They move with a quiet grace, shifting and settling as the air guides them. There is a sound here, different from below, not louder, but more open. The wind moves freely across the deck, brushing against the sails and slipping between the ropes. It carries with it a soft, continuous hum, blending with the ever-present rhythm of the waves. You begin to notice the structure of the ship more clearly. At the center, the main mast anchors everything, its base secured firmly into the deck. Around it, ropes are arranged with careful precision, each one leading to a specific purpose. Some are taut, holding the sails in position. Others hang with slight slack, waiting to be adjusted as needed. Toward the sides, the railings run along the edge of the ship, offering a boundary between wood and water. You step closer, placing your hand lightly against the smooth top rail. It is cool to the touch, slightly damp from the morning air. You look out. The sea stretches endlessly, its surface textured with small ripples and gentle waves. There is no land in sight, no markers, only the vast expanse of water, shifting in shades of blue and grey as the light slowly grows. It feels quiet here, not silent but calm, the kind of calm that comes from distance, from being far removed from anything fixed or familiar. The ship is your only connection to stability, your only sense of place in a world that is otherwise constantly in motion. Behind you, you hear movement again. Footsteps, more frequent now. The crew is beginning to wake, to gather, to step into their roles for the day. Voices follow, still low, still measured, but more present than before. The ship is slowly coming to life. You turn slightly, observing without interruption. A sailor crosses the deck, his movements steady and practiced. He does not rush. There is no need. Everything here follows a rhythm, and that rhythm is already understood. Another figure appears near the mast, checking the lines, adjusting a knot with quiet efficiency. No one speaks loudly. There is an unspoken understanding, a shared awareness of the space and the sounds that fill it. Even in activity, there is restraint, a kind of respect for the calm that defines this place. You remain still for a moment longer. The wind brushes past you again, carrying the faint cry of a distant seabird. It is brief, almost lost in the open air, but it reminds you that you are not entirely alone in this vastness. There are other lives here, moving across the same endless waters. The ship continues forward, always forward. You feel it beneath your feet, in the subtle shifts and steady motion. It does not stop. It does not hesitate. It simply moves, guided by wind and current, following a path that exists beyond what you can see. And you, standing on this wooden deck, become part of that movement, not separate from it, but carried within it. The morning continues to unfold gently, and with it, the presence of others becomes clearer. The ship is no longer a quiet structure of wood and rope alone. It is inhabited, lived in, sustained by the steady, purposeful movements of those who call it their temporary world. You begin to notice them not as passing figures, but as individuals, each carrying a role shaped by routine and necessity. A sailor stands near the mast, his hands moving with quiet certainty along a length of rope. His motions are practiced, almost automatic, as though the task exists, not in thought, but in memory. He does not look up. His attention remains on the fibers beneath his fingers, checking their tension, adjusting where needed. There is no wasted movement. Everything is precise. Not far from him, another man crosses the deck carrying a small wooden bucket. His pace is steady, unaffected by the ship's sway. He moves as though the motion beneath his feet is expected, accounted for. When the deck tilts slightly, his body shifts in response without hesitation. It is a kind of balance learned not through effort, but through repetition. You begin to understand something quiet but important. Life aboard this ship is not chaotic, it is structured, ordered in a way that feels almost invisible at first, but becomes clearer the longer you observe. Every person here knows their place, not as a limitation, but as a role within a larger system that must function without interruption. You step a little closer to the center of the deck, allowing your gaze to move more freely. There are officers here as well, though they are not immediately distinguished by loud authority or dramatic presence. Instead, their difference lies in subtle details, the way they stand, the way others glance toward them briefly before returning to their tasks. There is an awareness surrounding them, a quiet acknowledgement of their position. One of them stands near the helm, his posture upright, his attention fixed on the horizon. His clothing is slightly finer, though still practical, suited to the demands of the sea. He does not speak often, but when he does, his voice carries just enough to be heard without needing to rise. Commands here are not shouted unless necessary. They are given calmly, clearly, and understood immediately. The crew responds without delay. You notice how this exchange unfolds. A brief instruction, a nod, movement follows. No questions linger, no confusion settles. It is a rhythm of communication shaped by time and experience, where clarity is more valuable than volume. Further along the deck, a younger sailor works beside an older one. The younger man's movements are slightly less certain, though still careful. He watches closely, mirroring the actions of the one beside him. The older sailor does not correct him with words, but with presence. A slight adjustment of the hands. A quiet demonstration repeated just enough for it to be understood. Learning here is continuous, subtle, passed not through formal teaching, but through observation and repetition. You find yourself drawn to these small interactions. They reveal more than any explanation could. They show how knowledge lives within the crew, shared without ceremony, embedded in the daily tasks that must be carried out regardless of weather or mood. The ship shifts again, a slightly deeper roll this time, and you feel it move through your legs and into your stance. Around you, no one reacts with surprise. The motion is expected, accepted. It is part of the environment, as constant as the sound of the waves. Near the bow, a small group of sailors gathers briefly. Their voices are low, their words indistinct, but their tone is calm. There is no urgency in their conversation. It feels like a moment taken between duties, a pause within the larger flow of the day. One of them leans lightly against the railing, his gaze fixed on the water ahead. There is a stillness in him, a quiet reflection that seems to stretch beyond the immediate moment. Perhaps he is thinking of the journey, or perhaps he's thinking of nothing at all, simply existing within the rhythm of the sea. You begin to notice how time is experienced differently here. It is not divided by clocks or strict hours, but by shifts, watches, periods of responsibility that rotate through the crew. While some work, others rest. While some observe the horizon, others attend to the ropes, the sails, the countless small tasks that keep the ship moving forward. This division is not rigid in feeling, though it is precise in function. Everyone contributes. Everyone depends on one another. At the stern, near the helm, another officer stands with quiet focus. His hand rests lightly on the wheel, guiding it with subtle adjustments. He does not turn it dramatically. Only small movements, just enough to respond to the wind and the sea. It is a delicate balance, one that requires constant attention without appearing to demand effort. You watch for a moment longer. The wheel moves slightly. The ship responds. The sails shift overhead, catching the wind at a new angle. It is all connected, every part influencing the others in a continuous exchange of force and response. There is no separation here between action and consequence. Everything flows together. You take a slow breath, the sea air filling your lungs more fully now. It feels clearer than before, sharper in a way that awakens your senses without overwhelming them. You can taste the salt faintly, carried on the wind, settling lightly on your skin. The crew continues their work. No one stands idle for long, yet no one appears rushed. The pace is steady, deliberate. It reflects an understanding that the journey is long, that energy must be sustained rather than spent all at once. You begin to feel a quiet connection to this rhythm. It does not ask for your effort, only your awareness. To notice, to observe, to exist within the flow of movement and sound that defines life aboard this ship. A bell rings softly somewhere behind you. It is not loud, but it is clear. A signal, marking a shift in time, though not in the way you might expect. It does not rush anyone forward. It simply acknowledges that one period has ended and another has begun. The crew responds subtly. A few sailors change position. Others continue as they were, their tasks extending into the next watch. There is no disruption, only a gentle transition, like the tide shifting direction without ever stopping its motion. You turn slightly, taking in the deck once more. It feels different now, not because it has changed, but because you have begun to understand it. The people, the roles, the quiet structure that holds everything together without needing to be announced. This is not just a ship. It is a small, moving world, and within it, each person carries a piece of its balance. You remain still for a moment longer, letting this understanding settle. The sea continues its endless motion. The wind continues its quiet guidance, and the crew, in their steady, practiced way, continues to live within both. The morning deepens, though it does so without urgency. There is no sudden beginning to the day here, no sharp moment when rest ends and work fully takes over. Instead, everything unfolds gradually, like the slow brightening of the sky above. The ship continues its steady movement, and the crew settles more fully into their routines, each action blending into the next with quiet continuity. You remain on the deck, watching as the early stillness gives way to gentle activity. A sailor passes by carrying a coiled rope over his shoulder, his footsteps measured and even. He pauses near the mast, sets the rope down carefully, and begins to unwind it with deliberate movements. There is no rush in his hands. Each loop is placed with care, as though the rope itself demands respect. Nearby, another crew member kneels by a wooden bucket filled with seawater. He dips a brush into it and begins to scrub a section of the deck. The motion is steady, back and forth, repeated again and again. It is a simple task, but it holds importance. The salt, the dirt, the residue of travel, all must be managed, kept in balance with the ship's needs. You notice how even this quiet labor carries a sense of rhythm. The brush moves, the water spreads, the wood darkens briefly before drying again in the morning air. It is a cycle, small but constant, mirroring the larger cycles that define life at sea. The ship tilts slightly, and the man adjusts his position without pause. His work continues uninterrupted. It is not something he thinks about. It is simply part of the way things are done here. A faint warmth begins to settle into the air as the light strengthens. The sun is still low, but its presence is more certain now. It touches the edges of the sails, casting soft highlights along their curved surfaces. The ropes catch the light as well, their fibers outlined in pale gold for a moment before the ship shifts again. You walk slowly across the deck, your steps quieter now, more in tune with the space around you. The wood beneath your feet feels familiar, its texture already becoming something your body understands without needing to notice. As you move, you pass a small group of sailors gathered near a hatch. One of them lifts the heavy wooden cover, revealing a darker space below. The scent that rises is different, stronger, more enclosed. It carries hints of stored goods, preserved food, and the deeper layers of the ship's interior. They lower a bucket down with a rope, speaking briefly to someone out of sight. The exchange is calm, efficient. A few moments later, the bucket returns, heavier now. It is pulled up steadily, hand over hand, until it rests again on the deck. There is something almost meditative in this. The repetition, the quiet coordination, the absence of unnecessary words. You continue on, drawn toward the bow where the ship meets the open sea. The wind feels slightly stronger here, brushing more directly against your face. It carries a cooler edge, a reminder of the vastness ahead. You rest your hands lightly on the railing and look out once more. The water moves in long, gentle swells, rising and falling beneath the ship with patient consistency. Each wave seems to follow the last, not identical, but connected, as though part of a larger, unseen pattern. You find yourself watching the rhythm. Up, then down, forward, always forward. Behind you, the sounds of the ship continue to build, though never into noise. A rope is tightened. A pulley turns with a soft groan. Footsteps cross the deck in overlapping patterns, each one distinct yet blending into the whole. The morning duties are well underway now. You turn slightly and notice a sailor climbing part way up the rigging. His movements are careful but confident, his hands finding each hold with practiced ease. He ascends only a short distance before pausing to adjust a line, pulling it taut and securing it with a knot that seems both simple and exact. From below, another sailor watches briefly, then nods. No words are exchanged. None are needed. You begin to understand how much of this life is built on quiet trust. Each person relies on the others, not through constant communication, but through shared knowledge. The knots will hold, the ropes will be checked, the sails will be set as they should be. There is comfort in this predictability, even within the ever-changing environment of the sea. A bell rings again, soft but clear. It marks another passage of time, though you feel it less as a division and more as a continuation. The day is moving forward, just as the ship is. Nothing is separate. Everything flows. You step back from the railing and walk toward the center of the deck once more. The crew continues their work, their movements now fully settled into the rhythm of the day. There is a steadiness here, a sense that everything is unfolding as it should. You notice a small detail, a wooden crate being opened carefully. Inside are tools, simple but essential. A hammer, a few metal fittings, items used to maintain the ship itself. Even here, in the midst of travel, there is constant care for the vessel that carries everyone forward. The ship is not just a means of movement, it is something that must be tended, understood, preserved. You pause again, letting your gaze move slowly across the deck. The sails above shift slightly as the wind changes, their fabric catching and releasing the air in a quiet dance. The ropes respond, tightening and loosening in subtle harmony. The masts stand firm, absorbing these changes without resistance. Everything works together: wood, rope, wind, water, and the people who move among them. You take a slow breath, feeling the air fill your lungs once more. It is calm here, not empty, not silent, but calm in a way that allows each moment to exist fully without being rushed into the next. The morning continues, the ship continues, and you, now fully part of this quiet beginning, move gently within a world defined not by haste, but by steady, thoughtful motion. As the morning settles into its steady rhythm, your attention begins to shift towards something more grounded, more immediate. The quiet awareness of movement and routine remains, but now it is joined by a subtle recognition of need. Hunger does not arrive suddenly here. It grows slowly, almost thoughtfully, as though it too follows the measured pace of the sea. You notice a change in activity near the center of the ship. A few sailors gather around a secured hatch, their movements purposeful but unhurried. One of them kneels, loosening a rope that holds the wooden cover firmly in place. The knots are undone with practiced ease, and the hatch is lifted, revealing the darker interior below. A faint scent rises from within. It is not unpleasant, but it is dense. A mixture of stored grain, salted provisions, and the dry, enclosed air of the ship's lower hold. It carries the weight of preservation, of food kept not for immediate enjoyment, but for survival over long distances. You step a little closer, observing. A rope is lowered into the hold, attached to a small wooden crate. The sailor guiding it does so carefully, ensuring it does not swing too freely with the ship's motion. After a moment, there is a gentle tug from below. The crate is filled. It begins its slow return upward, drawn hand over hand with steady effort. When it reaches the deck, the lid is lifted. Inside you see simple provisions, hard biscuits, their surfaces pale and dry. Salted meat, dark and firm from the curing process. There are no bright colors here, no fresh ingredients. Everything is preserved. Everything is meant to last. You realize how different this is from life on land. Food here is not about variety. It is about reliability, about knowing that what is stored today will still sustain you weeks, even months from now. The taste is secondary. The purpose is primary. One of the sailors takes a biscuit and taps it lightly against the edge of the crate. A small sound echoes from the contact, revealing its hardness. He examines it briefly, then nods to himself before setting it aside. Another sailor cuts a portion of the salted meat with a small blade. The motion slow and controlled. There is no excess. Every piece is measured, every portion considered. You notice how quietly this process unfolds. There is no rush to eat, no hurried gathering. Instead, The food is prepared and distributed with the same calm efficiency that defines all tasks aboard the ship. Nearby, a small barrel is opened. Inside, water shifts gently with the motion of the vessel. A ladle is dipped in, lifted carefully to avoid spilling. The sailor holding it pours the water into simple cups, passing them along without a word. The water is not entirely fresh. It carries a faint, stale quality from its time in storage. Yet it is essential. It is guarded, rationed, respected. You take a moment to consider this. Every drop matters. Every meal matters. The ship moves forward, but it carries only what it has. There are no easy replacements here. No markets, no fields. Only what was brought aboard at the beginning of the journey. You begin to understand how deeply this shapes life at sea. Nothing is taken for granted. You watch as the food is shared among the crew. Each person receives their portion without question. There is no visible hierarchy in this moment, only a shared understanding of fairness and necessity. Even the officers, though they may have slight differences in quality, follow the same general structure of provision. A sailor leans against a post, holding his biscuit in one hand. He does not eat immediately. Instead, he looks out across the water for a moment, as though taking in the day before turning his attention to the simple meal before him. When he does begin, his movements are slow. He breaks the biscuit carefully, chewing with patience. The sound is quiet, almost lost in the surrounding rhythm of the ship. There is no urgency in the act. Eating here is not a distraction. It is part of the routine, part of the flow. You notice another small detail. A piece of cloth is used to wrap a portion of meat before it is set aside. Perhaps for later, perhaps for someone not yet present. Even in this limited environment, there is a sense of consideration, of quiet planning for what comes next. The ship tilts slightly again, and a cup shifts on the deck. A hand reaches out instinctively, steadying it before any water is lost. The motion is quick but calm, a natural response shaped by experience. Nothing spills if it can be helped. Nothing is wasted. You take a slow breath, letting the moment settle. The scent of salted meat lingers faintly in the air, blending with the ever-present notes of wood and sea. It is not a rich or inviting aroma, but it is real, honest. It speaks of endurance rather than indulgence. As the crew continues their quiet meal, the sounds of the ship remain constant. The creak of the beams, the soft tension of ropes, the distant hush of waves against the hull. All of it continues, unaffected by the simple act of eating. Life does not pause here. It flows. A sailor finishes his portion and rises without delay. There is no long rest that follows. He brushes his hands lightly against his clothing and returns to his duties, stepping back into the rhythm as though he never left it. Others do the same. One by one, the small gathering disperses. The crate is closed again, secured carefully before being lowered back into the hold. The hatch is replaced, tied down with the same deliberate knots as before. Everything returns to its place. Everything continues. You remain still for a moment longer, reflecting on what you have seen. Food here is not a moment of comfort in the usual sense. It is a quiet necessity woven into the larger pattern of life aboard the ship. It sustains the body, just as the routines sustain the mind. There is something calming in that simplicity. No choices to weigh, no excess to consider, only what is needed, given and received without question. You lift your gaze once more toward the horizon. The sea remains unchanged in its vastness, stretching endlessly in every direction. The ship moves steadily forward, carrying its people, its supplies, its quiet routines across a distance that feels both immense and unknowable. And within this moving world, even the simplest act, eating, drinking, preserving, becomes part of a larger, steady rhythm. A rhythm that asks for patience. A rhythm that offers continuity. A rhythm that continues moment by moment as the journey unfolds. By now, the morning has fully settled into the steady cadence of the day. The light has grown stronger, though it remains soft, filtered through the thin veil of early clouds and the ever-shifting sails above. The ship moves with quiet consistency, and the crew, having eaten and prepared, now turns more fully to the work that sustains the journey itself. You begin to notice how the rhythm of labor unfolds, not in bursts, but in cycles. Tasks are not rushed to completion. They are maintained, revisited, adjusted as the sea and wind demand. It is a kind of work that never truly ends, only shifts in focus. Near the main mast, a group of sailors gathers around a set of lines that run upward into the rigging. One of them pulls gently, testing the tension. Another watches the sail above, his gaze steady, reading the way it fills with wind. A small adjustment is made, just a few inches of rope drawn in, and the sail responds, tightening slightly, smoothing its curve. The change is subtle, yet it matters. You begin to understand that much of the work here lies in these small corrections. Not large actions, but careful refinements. The ship does not demand force as often as it requires attention. A voice speaks briefly, low and calm. A direction is given. The sailors respond immediately, their hands moving in quiet coordination. One secures the rope to a wooden cleat, wrapping it in a practiced pattern that holds firm without strain. Another steps back, observing the result before nodding once. The moment passes, the work continues. You move slowly across the deck, your steps more certain now. The ship's motion feels familiar, something your body has begun to anticipate rather than react to. You no longer think about balance, you simply have it. At the far side of the deck, you see another kind of work taking place. A sailor kneels beside a section of wood, holding a small tool in his hand. He is repairing something, a loose plank perhaps, or a minor crack that has begun to form. His movements are careful, deliberate. Each tap of the tool is measured, each adjustment made with quiet precision. The ship, you realize, is never left unattended. Even as it carries everyone forward, it must be cared for constantly. Small imperfections are addressed before they grow. Weaknesses are reinforced. The vessel is not static. It changes, wears, responds to the sea, and in return, the crew tends to it with steady attention. You pause nearby, watching. There is no frustration in the sailor's expression, no urgency, only focus, the kind that comes from understanding the importance of even the smallest task. A loose plank may seem minor, but here, everything is connected. Everything contributes to the whole. The wind shifts again, slightly stronger now. You feel it pass across your face, cooler, more defined. The sails respond with a gentle billow, their fabric tightening as they catch the new current. The ropes follow, pulling taut, their fibers creaking softly under the increased tension. Immediately the crew adjusts. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in small coordinated movements. A line is eased here, another is drawn in there. The ship responds, its course subtly refined, its motion steadied. It is a conversation, between wind and sail, between sea and hull, between the natural world and those who move within it. And the crew listens carefully. You continue walking, your gaze moving from one task to another. Each action is distinct, yet part of a larger pattern. A sailor coils a rope that has been temporarily released, ensuring it lies neatly and ready for its next use. Another checks a pulley, running his hand along its edge, feeling for wear or resistance. Nothing is ignored, nothing is left to chance. You begin to feel the passage of time not as something counted, but as something experienced through these repeated actions. The day is not divided into hours, but into moments of work, moments of observation, moments of quiet adjustment. A bell sounds again in the distance, soft, measured. It marks another shift in the watch, though the change is subtle. A few sailors step away from their tasks, replaced by others who move into position without hesitation. There is no disruption, only continuity. The work remains the same, even as the hands that carry it change. You notice how smoothly this transition occurs. It is not announced loudly. It does not demand attention. It simply happens, as naturally as the tide turning or the wind shifting direction. You find a place near the railing once more, resting your hand lightly against the wood. From here you can see both the open sea and the activity of the deck. The two feel connected now, inseparable. The work on the ship is not separate from the journey. It is the journey. Each rope adjusted, each plank secured, each sail trimmed. These are not tasks to be completed and forgotten. They are part of the continuous process that allows the ship to move forward, safely and steadily. You watch as a sailor climbs higher into the rigging this time, his figure moving with careful confidence against the backdrop of the sky. He pauses midway, securing a line that has loosened slightly in the stronger wind. His movements are precise, his balance unwavering despite the height and motion. From below, another sailor looks up, not with concern, but with quiet trust. This is how it works here. Each person relies on the others to perform their role, not perfectly, but consistently. Mistakes are not feared, but they are minimized through attention and experience. The ship continues its steady course. The sea remains vast and patient, and the work, constant and unbroken, flows alongside both. You take a slow breath, feeling the rhythm of it all settle deeper within you. There is no need to hurry, no need to anticipate what comes next. Everything unfolds in its time, guided by forces both seen and unseen, shaped by hands that understand their place within it. The day stretches ahead, not as a series of tasks to complete, but as a continuous movement to participate in. And you, standing quietly among it all, begin to feel that movement as something steady, something grounding, something that carries you forward without asking for more than your presence. As the day continues to unfold, the structure beneath everything becomes more visible, not through rules spoken aloud, but through patterns that repeat with quiet certainty. The ship is not only guided by wind and water, it is guided by order, a system that exists within the crew, shaping how they move, how they speak, how they respond to one another. You begin to notice it in the smallest ways. A sailor pauses before stepping into a space where an officer stands, not out of fear, but out of awareness. A brief nod is exchanged, nothing more. Then movement continues. It is subtle, almost unspoken, yet it carries meaning. Hierarchy here is not loud. It does not need to be. At the far end of the deck, near the helm, the captain stands with a stillness that feels different from the others. His presence is not marked by constant motion, but by observation. He watches the horizon, the sails, the crew. His attention moves slowly, deliberately, taking in each part of the ship as though it were a single, living thing. He does not intervene often, but when he does, the effect is immediate. A short instruction is given, quiet, clear. It reaches the intended ears without effort. A nearby officer acknowledges it with a simple turn of the head, then carries the message forward. Within moments, the necessary adjustment is made. A line is shifted, a position altered. Then stillness returns. You begin to understand that authority here is not expressed through volume, but through clarity. There is no confusion about who leads, just as there is no confusion about who follows. Each role exists within a larger framework that allows the ship to function without interruption. You walk slowly along the deck, your gaze moving from one interaction to another. Near the mast, two sailors work side by side, their movements synchronized without needing to speak. One holds a rope steady, while the other secures it. Their timing is exact. The rope is pulled, wrapped, tightened, and finished in a single fluid sequence. A third sailor approaches, pausing just long enough to observe before stepping in to assist. There is no hesitation, no question of whether he should join. He understands the task, understands his place within it, and becomes part of it without disruption. This is how the crew functions, not as individuals working separately, but as parts of a whole. You notice something else now. Discipline. It is not enforced loudly, but it is present in every action. The way tools are returned to their place, the way ropes are coiled neatly, never left tangled or loose, the way each sailor remains attentive, even during quieter moments. There is an understanding here that the sea allows no carelessness. Even the smallest oversight can grow into something larger if left unchecked. And so, attention is constant, not tense, not fearful, just steady. You pause near a section of the deck where a young sailor stands alone, holding a length of rope. His hands move carefully, forming a knot that is almost correct but not quite. He pauses, examining it, his brow slightly furrowed in the concentration. An older sailor approaches. He does not speak immediately. Instead, he watches. Then gently, he reaches out and adjusts the knot with a few precise movements. The difference is small, but clear. The rope now lies in a way that holds more securely, more reliably. The younger sailor nods. The lesson is given. No words are needed. You find yourself reflecting on this quiet exchange. Here, knowledge is not displayed for recognition. It is shared for necessity. Each person learns because they must, and teaches because others must learn. It is a continuous cycle, just like the movement of the sea itself. The ship rolls slightly beneath you, a deeper motion this time, and you instinctively widen your stance. Around you, the crew adjusts in the same moment, their bodies responding as one to the shift. It is almost unnoticeable, yet perfectly coordinated. You realize how much of this life is built on awareness, not just of the ship, but of each other. A sailor steps aside just as another passes, their movements aligned without collision. A hand reaches out to steady a shifting object before it falls. A glance is exchanged, acknowledging the action without drawing attention to it. These are small things, but they matter. At the center of the deck, an officer reviews a set of lines, his eyes moving carefully along their length. He checks each knot, each connection, ensuring that everything holds as it should. His presence is calm, but thorough. There is no assumption that things are correct. They are verified. This too is part of the discipline. Trust, but confirm. The wind eases slightly, and the sails respond with a softer billow. The tension in the ropes decreases, and the ship's movement becomes a little gentler, a little more even. The change is subtle, but it is felt throughout the vessel. Immediately, adjustments follow, not large ones, just enough to maintain balance. The crew responds as they always do, without hesitation, without unnecessary motion. Each action fits into the next, creating a seamless flow. You stand quietly, letting all of this settle into your awareness. Hierarchy, discipline, trust. They are not separate ideas here. They are part of the same structure, supporting one another, allowing the ship to move as a unified whole. The sea stretches endlessly around you, unchanged in its vastness. It does not recognize rank or role. It moves as it always has, indifferent to those who travel across it. And yet, within this small vessel, order exists, not imposed against the sea, but aligned with it. The crew does not fight the motion. They adapt to it. They do not resist the wind. They work with it. And within that understanding, a quiet harmony forms. You take a slow breath, feeling the rhythm once more, the rise, the fall, the steady continuation of movement that defines everything here. And within it, the people who live and work aboard this ship, each carrying their place, their role, their quiet responsibility, all moving together, all held within the same gentle, unbroken flow. Section 8. As the day moves quietly forward, the steady rhythm of work begins to soften at its edges. The tasks do not disappear, nor do they lose their importance. But there are moments now, small, unspoken pauses, where the intensity of labor eases and something gentler takes its place. These moments are not scheduled. They emerge naturally, like a calm patch of water between long, rolling waves. You begin to notice them in the spaces between actions. A sailor finishes coiling a rope and lingers for just a second longer than necessary, his hands resting lightly against the wood. He looks out toward the horizon, not searching for anything, simply allowing his gaze to settle on the distant line where sea meets sky. Then, without urgency, he steps away and continues on. Nearby, another sits on a low crate, his back against the side of the ship. His posture is relaxed, though not careless. One leg is bent, the other stretched slightly forward, adjusting with the subtle movement of the deck. In his hands, he holds a small object, perhaps a piece of cloth or a simple tool, and turns it slowly, absent-mindedly, as though the motion itself is enough. There is no rush to fill these moments. They exist on their own. The ship continues its journey, and within that constant motion, these quiet pauses become part of the rhythm just as much as the work itself. You walk slowly along the deck, your steps measured, your awareness expanding beyond the tasks you have been observing. The sounds remain the same, the creak of wood, the tension of ropes, the soft hush of water, but they feel different now, less like a backdrop to activity, and more like something you can simply listen to. At the far side of the deck, a small group of sailors gathers again, though this time their purpose is less defined. They sit or lean where they can, their voices low, their conversation unhurried. You cannot make out the words, but the tone carries a quiet familiarity, a shared understanding built over time. One of them gestures lightly with his hand as he speaks, his movements slow and fluid. Another nods, his gaze drifting occasionally toward the sea before returning to the group. There is no tension here, no need to prove or explain, just the presence of others and the simple act of being together. You pause nearby, not intruding, just observing. There is something deeply human in this. Even in a place defined by duty and discipline, there is room for stillness, for connection, for moments that exist without purpose beyond themselves. The wind softens slightly, and the sails respond with a quieter movement, their fabric shifting with less force. The ship's motion follows, becoming gentler, more even. It is not still, never still, but it feels calmer now, as though the sea itself has chosen to rest. You notice a sailor seated near the base of the mast, his back against the wood. His eyes are half closed, not asleep, but somewhere between wakefulness and rest. His breathing is slow, matching the rise and fall of the ship beneath him. No one disturbs him. There is an understanding here that rest, even in small moments, is necessary, not as an indulgence, but as part of the balance that keeps everything moving. A faint sound reaches you, soft at first, almost lost in the wind, then clearer. Someone is humming. It is a simple tune, quiet and unassuming, carried gently across the deck. It does not draw attention. It does not demand to be heard. It simply exists, blending into the surrounding sounds in a way that feels natural. You listen for a moment. The melody is steady, repetitive, like the motion of the sea itself. It rises slightly, then falls, returning again to the same pattern. There are no words, just the sound, soft and continuous. It adds something to the space, not noise, not distraction, but a kind of warmth. You continue walking, your gaze moving upward toward the rigging. A sailor sits perched partway along a beam, his legs hanging loosely as he leans back against the ropes. From below, it might seem precarious, but his posture is relaxed, his balance assured. He looks out over the water, his expression calm, almost distant. Perhaps he is thinking, or perhaps he is simply present, letting the vastness around him fill his awareness without needing to understand it. You feel a quiet pull in that direction. Not to climb, not to reach that same position, but to share in the stillness it represents. The sense of being suspended between movement and rest, between effort and ease. The ship continues forward, always forward. And within that movement, these small moments of pause do not interrupt the journey. They support it. They allow it to continue without strain, without exhaustion. You find a place near the railing once more and rest your hands lightly against the wood. The surface is warm now, touched by the growing light of the day. The sea stretches endlessly ahead, unchanged, yet never the same. You watch the waves. They rise gently, then fall, each one following the last, yet never identical. It reminds you of these moments. Work, pause, movement, stillness, all parts of the same continuous flow. Behind you, the crew begins to shift again, slowly returning to their tasks as the moment of rest passes. There is no signal, no command. It simply happens, as naturally as it began. The sailor, who had been seated on the crate, stands, stretching slightly before stepping back into motion. The group that had been gathered disperses, each person moving toward their next responsibility. The humming fades, not abruptly, but gradually, until it becomes indistinguishable from the other sounds of the ship. Nothing is forced. Nothing is held onto longer than it needs to be. You take a slow breath, feeling the calm settle deeper within you. There is a balance here, between effort and ease, between duty and rest, between the demands of the journey and the quiet moments that make it sustainable. And as the ship continues its steady path across the open sea, you begin to understand that these small, gentle pauses are not separate from life aboard this vessel. They are essential to it. As the day stretches onward, the calm remains, but it begins to carry a different depth. Not a disturbance, not a disruption, but an awareness that the sea, though gentle now, is never entirely predictable. The ship continues forward with steady purpose, yet beneath that steadiness lies an understanding shared quietly among the crew. You begin to notice it in their attention. A sailor near the mast pauses longer than before, his gaze lifting toward the sails, watching how they catch the wind. Another stands by the railing, not resting, but observing the water more carefully, as though reading something within its movement. There is no tension, only awareness. The sky above shifts subtly. The light remains soft, but the clouds have begun to gather in loose formations, drifting slowly across the open expanse. They do not block the sun entirely, but they change the quality of the light, making it feel more distant, more diffused. You look out toward the horizon. It is still there, still calm, but less defined than before. The line between sea and sky blurs slightly, softened by the shifting air. The ship rolls beneath you again, a little deeper this time. Not sharply, not enough to cause alarm, but enough to be felt more clearly in your stance. Around you, the crew adjusts as they always do, their movements smooth and controlled. A rope is checked, a knot is tightened, a sail is watched more closely. These are small actions, but they carry meaning. They show an understanding that the sea can change, sometimes slowly, sometimes without warning. And though there is no sign of difficulty yet, the crew prepares in quiet ways, ensuring that everything remains secure. You begin to feel the vastness of the ocean more deeply now. Earlier, it felt open, calm, almost endless in a comforting way. Now, it still stretches just as far, but there is a subtle shift in how you perceive it. Not threatening, but immense. Uncontained. A space where change can come without announcement. You take a slow breath, letting the air fill your lungs. It is cooler now. Not cold, but carrying a sharper edge than before. The wind moves more steadily across the deck, brushing against the sails with a slightly firmer hand. The fabric responds with a deeper sound, a fuller billow that echoes faintly through the rigging. A sailor climbs partway up the mast again, his movements careful but more deliberate this time. He reaches a line and adjusts it, pulling it tighter, securing it more firmly. From below, another watches, ready if needed. Though no assistance is called for, the ship continues its forward motion, unaffected in its purpose. Yet everything feels more attentive. You walk slowly along the deck, your gaze moving across the crew as they work. There is no sign of worry in their expressions, no urgency in their pace. But there is a quiet readiness, a sense that each person is aware of their role not just in calm conditions, but in whatever may come. You pause near the center of the deck. The sounds of the ship are slightly different now. The creaks are deeper. The ropes carry more tension. The waves, though still steady, seem to press a little more firmly against the hull. Their rhythm just a shade more pronounced. It is not a storm, not even close. But it is a reminder. The sea is always present, always capable of change. You look upward again. The clouds continue their slow gathering, forming soft layers that drift across the sky. Light filters through them unevenly, creating patches of brightness and shadow that move gently with the wind. It feels quiet, but not empty. A sailor passes by carrying a small tool, his grip steady, his gaze focused ahead. He moves with purpose, though not with haste. You notice how he pauses briefly to secure a loose item before continuing on. Even the smallest detail is addressed. Nothing is ignored. Nothing is assumed to remain as it is. You find yourself reflecting on this. Life at sea is not about control. It is about readiness, about understanding that while the ship can be guided, maintained, and cared for, the ocean itself follows its own rhythm. And within that reality, the crew moves with quiet respect. Another bell sounds, soft but clear. The shift in watch occurs once more, though like before, it does not interrupt the flow of activity. New hands take their places. Fresh eyes scan the sails, the horizon, the lines. The work continues seamlessly, carried forward by those who remain and those who arrive. You step closer to the railing again, your hand resting lightly against the wood. The sea stretches outward, unchanged in its vastness, yet subtly different in its motion. The waves seem slightly longer now, their rise and fall more extended, their movement more deliberate. You watch them for a moment. There is a rhythm here too, not identical to before, but connected. Everything shifts, everything continues. Behind you, the crew maintains their quiet vigilance. A line is tested again, a knot checked once more, a sail adjusted by a fraction. These actions are not reactions. They are habits, formed over time, guided by experience. You take another slow breath, feeling the air move through you, carrying with it the scent of salt and distance. There is a calm here, but it is not the same calm as before. It is deeper, more aware, a calm that exists not because nothing can happen, but because everything is being quietly prepared for. The ship moves forward. The wind guides it. The sea supports it. And the people aboard it, through steady attention and quiet understanding, remain ready for whatever the journey may bring. As the day begins its slow descent toward evening, the quality of light changes first. It softens, not abruptly, but with a gradual easing that spreads across the sky and sea alike. The brightness that once defined the morning and midday now mellows into warmer tones, casting long, quiet shadows across the deck. The ship continues forward, unchanged in its purpose, yet the atmosphere around it begins to settle into something calmer, more reflective. You notice it in the way the crew moves. The work does not stop, but it becomes less continuous, more spaced. Tasks that required constant attention begin to ease, replaced by quieter forms of maintenance and observation. A sailor finishes securing a line and lingers for a moment, his hands resting against the rope before he steps away. Another completes a small repair and sets his tools aside with care, ensuring they are stored properly before the light fades further. There is no clear signal that marks this transition. It simply unfolds. The wind remains steady, though softer now, brushing against the sails with a gentler touch. The fabric responds with a quieter motion, its earlier fullness replaced by a more relaxed curve. The ropes follow, their tension easing slightly, their sounds becoming less pronounced. You walk slowly across the deck, your steps unhurried, your awareness attuned to the subtle changes around you. The wood beneath your feet carries the warmth of the day, though it is beginning to cool. The air shifts as well, losing some of its sharpness, becoming smoother, more settled. At the horizon, the colors deepen. Soft gold begins to spread across the water, reflecting the lowering sun. The sea takes on a different character, its surface no longer defined by clear blues and greys, but by layered tones that shift with each passing moment. The waves continue their steady rise and fall, but they seem quieter now, as though responding to the changing light. You pause near the railing once more, resting your hands lightly against the wood. From here, you can see the full breadth of the scene. The sails above, now touched with warm light, the crew moving more slowly, their tasks nearing completion, the sea stretching endlessly, yet softened by the approach of evening. It feels like a natural closing, though nothing has truly ended. Behind you, a small group of sailors gathers near the center of the deck. Their voices are low, their conversation unhurried. It is not a break in the strict sense, but a gentle pause, a moment where the demands of the day have lessened enough to allow for stillness. One of them sits on a crate, leaning forward slightly, his elbows resting on his knees. Another stands nearby, his gaze drifting toward the horizon as he listens. There is no urgency in their exchange, no need to speak quickly or at length. The ship continues its motion, carrying them all forward as it always has. You notice a sailor walking toward the stern, his steps measured, his posture relaxed. He pauses near the helm, speaking briefly with the officer stationed there. The exchange is quiet, almost casual, though it still carries the clarity of purpose that defines all communication aboard the ship. The officer nods, his attention returning to the horizon. Even now, as the day softens, the watch remains. There is always someone observing, always someone guiding. You turn your gaze upward. The sky has changed more noticeably now. The clouds that drifted earlier have thinned, allowing the light of the setting sun to pass through more clearly. It spreads across the sky in soft gradients, blending gold into pale orange, then into the faintest hints of deeper color. It is not dramatic. It is calm. The kind of beauty that does not demand attention, but rewards it quietly. You take a slow breath, letting the air fill your lungs. It feels different now, cooler, smoother, carrying with it the subtle transition from day into night. On the deck, the crew begins to prepare for the evening in small, methodical ways. Loose items are secured more firmly. Tools are returned to their places. Lines are checked once more, not out of concern, but out of habit. Everything is brought into readiness for the hours ahead. You watch as a lantern is lifted from a hook, its surface catching the last of the daylight. It is not yet lit, but its presence marks the coming change. Soon, the natural light will fade, and these small sources of flame will take its place, casting a different kind of illumination across the ship. The thought settles gently. Night is approaching, not as an interruption, but as a continuation. The ship does not stop when the sun sets. It does not rest entirely. It simply shifts, just as it has throughout the day, adapting to the new conditions with quiet consistency. You walk slowly toward the center of the deck again, your steps guided more by feeling than by intention. The sounds around you have softened further. The creak of the wood is still there, but less pronounced. The wind moves more gently through the rigging. The waves continue their steady rhythm, unchanged in their presence. A bell sounds once more, marking another passage of time. Its tone feels different now, not because it has changed, but because the moment around it has. It carries a sense of transition, of the day giving way to something quieter. something more inward. The crew responds as they always do, though their movements are slower, more measured. The pace of the ship has not changed, but the feeling of it has. You pause once more, allowing yourself to simply stand within it. The fading light, the gentle motion, the quiet presence of those around you. Everything continues. Nothing is forced. Nothing is rushed. The day does not end sharply. It dissolves, softly, gradually. And as the last warmth of sunlight lingers across the deck, you begin to feel the ship settling into the calm, steady rhythm of evening. Night does not arrive all at once. It gathers slowly, like a tide rising in silence, softening the edges of everything it touches. The last traces of sunlight fade gently from the horizon, leaving behind a dim, even glow that lingers for a time before giving way completely. The ship continues forward, unchanged in its motion, but transformed in its atmosphere. You notice it first in the light. Lanterns are lit one by one, their small flames flickering to life against the darkening air. The glow they cast is warm and contained, illuminating only what is near. The deck, once open and expansive beneath the daylight, now feels more intimate, defined by circles of soft golden light surrounded by shadow. You walk slowly across the deck, your steps quieter now, as though the night itself encourages gentleness. The wood beneath your feet feels cooler, holding only a faint memory of the day's warmth. The air has shifted as well, carrying a deeper chill that brushes lightly against your skin. Above you, the sky has opened. The clouds that lingered earlier have thinned, revealing a wide expanse of darkness scattered with distant stars. They appear gradually, faint at first, then clearer as your eyes adjust. There is no rush in their presence. They simply emerge, steady and constant, marking the vastness above as surely as the sea marks the vastness below. The ship moves through both, between sky and water, between two infinities. You pause near the railing, resting your hands lightly against the wood. The sea is darker now, its surface reflecting only fragments of starlight and the faint glow of the lanterns behind you. The waves continue their motion, but they are less visible, felt more than seen. You listen. The sound of water against the hull is clearer in the night. Without the distractions of daytime activity, it stands out more distinctly, a steady, rhythmic hush that fills the space around you. It is constant, reassuring in its repetition. Behind you, the crew has changed. Not entirely, but enough to be felt. The number of active sailors on deck is fewer now. The energy of the day has softened into something quieter, more focused. Those who remain move with purpose, their roles shifting into what is known as the night watch. You begin to notice how different this is. The work continues, but it is more about observation than action. A sailor stands near the mast, his gaze lifting occasionally toward the sails, checking their shape against the wind. Another remains near the helm, his hands resting lightly on the wheel, making small adjustments as needed. There is no rush, only attention. A bell sounds in the distance, its tone clear in the quiet of the night. It marks the passing of time, though here, time feels less like something measured and more like something experienced. Each watch blends into the next, carried forward by the steady motion of the ship. You walk slowly toward the center of the deck, where a lantern hangs from a wooden beam. Its flame flickers gently, responding to the subtle movement of the air. The light it casts is soft, uneven, creating shifting patterns across the wood. A sailor stands nearby, his posture relaxed but attentive. He glances briefly in your direction, offering a small nod before returning his gaze outward. There is no need for conversation. Presence is enough. You notice how the sounds of the ship have changed. The creaks are softer now, less frequent, as though the vessel itself has settled into the night. The ropes move quietly, their tension adjusted earlier, now holding steady. The sails catch the wind with a gentler motion, their fabric whispering rather than billowing. Everything feels reduced, simplified, not in function, but in sensation. You move toward the bow, drawn by the openness of the space ahead. The wind feels stronger here, cooler as it meets you directly. It carries the scent of the sea more clearly, sharp and clean. You look out into the darkness. The horizon is no longer visible as a line, but as a blending of tones, where sea and sky meet without distinction. It feels endless, boundless in a way that is both calming and humbling. You take a slow breath. There is a quiet stillness within the movement. The ship continues its journey, guided by wind and skill, but surrounded by a vastness that cannot be fully understood. Behind you, a soft murmur of voices rises briefly, then fades. A pair of sailors exchange a few words, their tones low, careful not to disturb the quiet. The conversation ends as quickly as it began, leaving the space once again filled only with the sounds of the sea and the ship. You turn back, your gaze moving across the deck. A sailor walks slowly along the edge, checking the lines, his hands brushing against them lightly as he passes. Another stands near the stern, his attention fixed on the direction of the wind, feeling it rather than watching it. These are the duties of the night: watching, listening, maintaining. You begin to feel the passage of time differently now. Without the changing light of day, moments blend together more seamlessly. The rhythm remains, but it is quieter, less defined. 1. The bell will mark the watches, but in between, there is a sense of continuity that stretches beyond simple measurement. You find a place near the mast and rest there for a moment, leaning lightly against the wood. It feels solid, steady beneath your hand, a quiet anchor within the constant motion of the ship. Above, the stars continue to reveal themselves, filling the sky in patterns both familiar and distant. They remain fixed, even as the ship moves beneath them, offering a sense of direction, of constancy in a world that is always shifting. You watch them for a while, not searching for meaning, simply observing. The ship moves forward. The sea breathes beneath it. The wind guides it. And the night, calm and expansive, settles fully around you. As the night deepens, the ship settles into a quieter, more inward rhythm. The movement of the sea continues unchanged, but the activity above deck has softened even further. Only a few figures remain visible in the lantern light, their presence steady but unobtrusive, carrying out the quiet duties of the watch. For many aboard, this is the time to return below, to rest within the enclosed spaces of the ship where sleep comes gently, shaped by motion and sound. You move slowly toward the steps that lead downward. The lantern light fades behind you as you descend, replaced by a dim, enclosed glow that filters through the lower deck. The air shifts again, becoming warmer, heavier, carrying familiar scents of wood, rope, and the quiet presence of many lives sharing a single space. Each step creaks softly beneath your feet. The ship's motion feels different here, more contained. The sway is still present, but it is softened by the surrounding structure. absorbed into the beams and walls that hold everything together. You reach the sleeping quarters once more. The hammocks hang in their rows, gently swaying, some occupied, others waiting. The light is low, coming from a single lantern secured carefully to a beam. Its flame flickers with the movement of the ship, casting soft shadows that shift slowly across the wood. There is a quiet here. Not silence, but something close to it, a presence of rest. You notice the sailors already asleep. Some lie still, their bodies relaxed within the curve of the hammocks. Others move slightly with the ship, their breathing slow and even, matching the rhythm of the waves outside. There is no uniformity in their rest, yet there is a shared calm that fills the space. You move carefully, mindful of the closeness. Each step is placed gently, each movement softened so as not to disturb those already at rest. The floor responds with a quiet creak, but it blends into the larger sound of the ship, unnoticed. You find your place. The hammock you left earlier still sways lightly, as though it remembers your presence. You reach out and steady it with your hand, feeling the coarse fabric beneath your fingers. It is simple, worn, yet it holds a quiet comfort. You sit slowly. The hammock shifts beneath your weight, then settles into its familiar curve. The motion of the ship returns more fully now, carried through the ropes that suspend you, creating a gentle rocking that feels almost intentional. You pause, letting the moment settle. Around you, the sounds of the ship continue. The low creak of wood adjusting to pressure, the faint murmur of water against the hull, the soft, steady breathing of those nearby. All of it blends into a single, continuous rhythm. You lie back. The hammock cradles you, its fabric supporting your weight as it sways with the movement of the sea. There is no need to adjust much. The shape guides you naturally into stillness. Above, the ceiling feels close again, but not oppressive. It is simply part of the space, part of the structure that holds everything together. You can see the faint lines of the beams, their surfaces marked by time and use. The lantern light flickers gently, casting shadows that move slowly across the wood. You close your eyes for a moment. The motion becomes more noticeable now, not stronger, but more present. A steady rise, a gentle fall, repeated again and again. It feels like breathing. The ship breathes, the sea breathes, and you, lying here, begin to match that rhythm without effort. You open your eyes briefly, looking across the dim space. A sailor nearby shifts slightly in his hammock, then settles again. Another turns, the fabric creaking softly beneath him before returning to stillness. These small movements do not disturb the calm. They are part of it. You notice how closely everyone rests together. There is little separation here. No private rooms. No distance between one person and another. And yet, there is comfort. A shared understanding that this is how life exists aboard the ship. Together, within the same space, moving with the same motion. You take a slow breath. The air is warm, carrying the quiet presence of those around you. It is not as fresh as above deck, but it is familiar, grounding in its own way. The ship shifts again, a slightly deeper roll, and the hammocks respond together, swaying in gentle unison. The motion is not disruptive. It is soothing, like being carried. You begin to feel your body relax more fully. The tension of standing, of observing, of moving through the day fades quietly. Your muscles soften. Your breathing deepens. The sounds continue. Always the sounds. They do not stop, but they change in how you hear them. They become softer, more distant, part of something larger that no longer demands your attention. The lantern light dims slightly as its flame settles. The shadows grow softer, less defined. The space feels quieter, though nothing has truly changed, only your awareness. You close your eyes again. The motion remains. The rhythm continues. The ship moves forward, carrying everyone within it through the darkness, guided by wind and watchful hands above. And here, below deck, sleep comes not as a sudden absence, but as a gradual drifting, a slow release into rest. You feel it, gently, steadily, like the tide itself. Sleep does not arrive as a single moment, but as a quiet unfolding. Much like everything else aboard the ship, it settles gradually, carried by the steady rhythm of the sea and the gentle motion that surrounds you. Your body softens into the hammock, your breathing slows, and your awareness begins to drift, not away from the ship, but deeper into it, into the calm continuity that defines this place. The night continues outside, vast and open, though you no longer need to see it to feel its presence. The ship moves through it with quiet certainty, guided by forces that require no effort from you now. The wind fills the sails. The crew above maintains their watch. The ocean stretches endlessly in all directions. And within this moving world, you rest. There is something timeless in this experience, not because time has stopped, but because it has lost its urgency. The hours pass, marked softly by distant bells, by the quiet shift of the watch, by the unbroken motion of the ship itself. You do not follow those markers closely. You do not need to. The rhythm carries you forward without requiring your attention. As you lie there, suspended gently between wood and rope, you begin to sense the deeper nature of the journey. It is not only a crossing of distance, though the ship travels far beyond what can be seen. It is also a passage through stillness, through repetition, through the quiet acceptance of movement without resistance. The sea teaches this in its own way. It does not hurry. It does not pause. It simply continues, shaping everything that moves upon it. And the ship, built to follow that motion, becomes part of it. Not separate, not opposing, but aligned. You, in turn, become part of that alignment. Your breathing matches the sway. Your thoughts slow to the rhythm of the waves. Even your sense of self softens, no longer fixed in one place, but carried gently forward along with everything else. There is a quiet philosophy in this, though it is not spoken aloud. It does not come in the form of instruction or reflection, but through experience, through the simple act of being here, within a world that moves steadily without asking for more than your presence. You begin to understand that life aboard the ship is not defined by single moments, but by continuity. Each task, each pause, each breath flows into the next without interruption. There is no clear boundary between one part of the day and another, only gradual transitions that guide you from waking to working, from working to resting, from light into darkness and back again. This continuity brings a kind of quiet peace, not the absence of difficulty, but the acceptance of it as part of the whole. The sea may change, the wind may shift, the journey may be long and uncertain, and yet, within all of that, there is rhythm, there is structure, there is a way of moving forward that does not depend on control but on understanding. You feel the hammock sway again, a gentle motion that carries you slightly to one side, then back. It is familiar now, comforting in its repetition. Each movement is the same, yet never identical, like the waves themselves. Around you, the other sailors rest in similar stillness. Their presence is quiet, their breathing soft. forming a shared rhythm that fills the space without sound. You do not need to see them to know they are there. You feel it, just as you feel the ship, the sea, the slow passage of time. Above, unseen but steady, the watch continues. Someone stands at the helm. Someone observes the sails. Someone listens to the wind. Their quiet vigilance allows this rest to exist, allows the journey to continue without interruption. It is a balance. Work and rest. Movement and stillness. Awareness and release. All held together within the structure of the ship and the vastness of the ocean beyond it. Your thoughts drift more slowly now. They do not disappear. They simply soften, becoming less defined, less insistent. Like the horizon at night, they blur gently into the surrounding calm. You take one more slow breath. The air is warm, steady, carrying the faint scent of wood and sea. It fills your lungs and leaves again, part of the same rhythm that has carried you through the day and into this quiet moment. There is nothing more to do, nothing to prepare, nothing to anticipate. The ship continues, the sea continues, and you, within it all, are simply carried forward, steadily, gently. The drifting continues, though it no longer feels like movement alone. It feels like suspension, as if you exist somewhere between one moment and the next, gently held in place by the steady rhythm of the ship and the quiet persistence of the sea. Sleep does not fully take you, and wakefulness does not fully return. Instead, you rest in the space between. The hammock sways, slowly, consistently. Its motion is softer now, or perhaps you simply feel it less sharply. Your body is adjusted completely, no longer resisting the rise and fall, but moving with it, as though it has always belonged to this rhythm. The ropes above creak faintly, their sound blending into the deeper, slower voice of the hull as it meets the water. You remain still. Your breathing is even. Your thoughts are distant, not gone, but quieter, less defined. They drift like the waves themselves, forming briefly before dissolving back into something wider and less certain. There is no need to follow them, no need to hold on to them. Above deck, the night watch continues, though you no longer hear the individual movements. The footsteps that once marked presence have softened into something almost imperceptible. The voices are gone. Only the occasional shift of wood or rope carries faintly downward, reminding you that the ship is still guided, still cared for. The ocean speaks more clearly now. Its sound is deeper in the night, not louder, but fuller. Each wave brushes against the hull with a slow, measured hush, followed by a gentle retreat. Then again, and again. The repetition is endless, yet it never feels monotonous. Each motion carries a slight difference, a subtle variation that keeps it alive. You listen without effort. It is no longer something separate from you. It surrounds you, holds you, carries you further into stillness. The lantern nearby burns low. Its flame flickers softly, smaller than before, casting only the faintest light across the beams above. Shadows move slowly along the wood, stretching and shifting with the motion of the ship. They do not disturb the calm. They become part of it. You feel the air, warm, still, layered with the quiet presence of others resting nearby. There is no movement among them now, only the slow rise and fall of breath, barely noticeable, yet constant. It forms a kind of shared silence, a collective stillness that fills the space without weight. The ship rolls slightly deeper for a moment. Not sharply, just enough to be felt more clearly. The hammock responds, swaying a little wider before returning to its steady rhythm. You do not react. Your body follows the motion naturally, as though it has learned the language of the sea without needing to understand it. Time continues to pass, unnoticed, unmeasured. The bell may sound above, marking the watches as it always does, but here below, it fades into the background, no longer something that defines the moment. The divisions between hours dissolve, only the rhythm remains. You drift further, not into sleep, not fully, but into a deeper stillness where awareness softens and expands at the same time. You sense the ship as a whole now, not just the space around you. The beams, the ropes, the sails above filled with wind you cannot see but can feel in the way the vessel moves. Everything is connected. Everything continues. The sea stretches endlessly beneath you, its depth unfathomable, its surface only a small part of what it holds. You do not think about it in detail. You simply feel its presence, vast and patient, carrying the ship forward without effort. There is no destination here, not in this moment, only the journey itself, the quiet continuation of movement through darkness, guided by forces that require no attention from you now. Your breathing slows further, deeper, softer. Each inhale matches the rise of the ship. Each exhale follows its fall. It becomes a pattern, a gentle alignment. You feel less separate from your surroundings, as though the boundaries between body, ship, and sea have softened. Not disappearing, but blending into something more fluid. There is comfort in that. A release from the need to define. The hammock sways again. Always the same, always slightly different. The wood creaks faintly. The water moves. The air remains still. All of it continues without interruption. You remain suspended within it, at ease, untroubled. The night deepens further, though it is difficult to tell exactly how. The darkness feels more complete now, more settled, as though it has reached its quietest point. There is no sense of anticipation, no expectation of change, only the present held gently in place. And within that stillness, you drift, not forward, not backward, simply within, carried by motion that asks nothing of you, guided by rhythm that never breaks, resting in a space where time softens and everything continues without effort. Somewhere beyond the depth of night, a change begins. It is almost too subtle to notice at first. The darkness remains. The ship continues its slow movement. The sea keeps its quiet rhythm against the hull. Yet something in the air softens, as though the night has begun to loosen its hold without fully letting go. You feel it before you see it. A slight coolness, a gentler stillness. The sense that the long hours of darkness are beginning, very slowly, to turn toward morning. The ship does not respond with haste. It does not awaken suddenly. It simply continues, carrying its quiet world forward as the first unseen traces of light gather beyond the horizon. The hammock sways beneath you, steady and familiar. Your body remains relaxed, resting between sleep and wakefulness, aware only in fragments. A sound rises from the wood, a faint creak, then the soft answering hush of water outside. These sounds have followed you through the night, and now they remain unchanged as the world begins its slow return. A sailor shifts nearby. The movement is small, barely more than a rustle of fabric and rope. Then stillness settles again. Even the sleepers seem to remain within the night for a little longer, held by its warmth and quiet, reluctant to return fully to the duties of the day. There is no call yet, no rising voices, no firm steps overhead. only the patient continuation of the ship's passage. Above deck, the watch is still awake. Someone stands in the dimness, looking out across the water, waiting for the first clearer shape of the horizon to return. The sails are still filled. The ropes still hold. The helm is still guided by steady hands that have carried the vessel through the darkest hours. The sky begins to pale. Not brightly, not fully, just enough. A faint greyness spreads somewhere beyond the wooden walls and closed spaces below, touching the edges of the sea before it reaches the ship itself. You cannot see it yet from the hammock, but you can sense the change in the quiet movements around you, in the way the air seems to open slightly. The lantern burns lower now, its flame small and tired, no longer the center of the darkness. Soon it will not be needed. Soon the day will return, not as an interruption, but as another gentle turning in the long rhythm of the journey. You breathe slowly. The ship rises. The ship falls. And beneath it all, the sea continues its ancient movement, indifferent and generous, carrying wood, canvas, rope, and sleeping bodies across its surface. It has done this through the night. It will continue into morning. It does not mark the change with ceremony. It simply moves. A bell sounds faintly above. Its tone is soft in the half-dark. It marks time, but it also feels like part of the dream. The sound travels through beams and planks, reaches the quiet sleeping space, and fades before it can fully wake anyone. A few bodies stir. One hammock shifts slightly wider, then settles. Another sailor draws a breath, deep and slow, and returns to rest. The morning is patient. It waits. It arrives in layers, first in the air, then in the light, then in the movements of those who must rise and begin again. The ship knows this pattern. The crew knows it too. Nothing needs to be hurried. The day will unfold as all days at sea unfold, through small tasks, careful hands, and the endless conversation between wind and sail. You remain still a while longer. There is comfort in this final pocket of darkness, before names are spoken, before tools are lifted, before feet cross the deck in familiar patterns. It is the quietest part of morning, when night has not fully ended and day has not fully begun. In that softness, the journey feels endless in the calmest possible way. Not because it has no destination, but because each moment is complete before the next one arrives. The ship does not need to know the full distance in order to continue. It needs only wind, attention, and the steady trust of those aboard. A little more light returns. The beams above you become clearer. The edges of the hammocks emerge from shadow. The faces nearby remain mostly hidden, but the space itself begins to take shape again. Wood becomes wood. Rope becomes rope. The dim outlines of chests and bundles return from the darkness, familiar and simple. You open your eyes only halfway. There is no need to rise yet. The ship is already moving. The sea is already carrying it. The day is already beginning in its own quiet way. And as the first soft morning gathers around the vessel, you remain gently held by the last traces of sleep, floating between rest and waking, listening to the calm wooden world around you. Prepare, slowly and without hurry, to continue.